Greetings from Asbury Park, New Jersey. No, it's actually Las Vegas, Nevada. Greetings. I want to talk to you about the politics of our political parties. This is the broad intro video, so this is going to be the overview. Obviously, for the finer details, you'll want to reference the narrated PowerPoint slides and the material in our text. America's political party system, right? Basic observation here. We have a two-party system. That's unusual, by the way. Most other democracies have multi-party systems. We've always had a two-party system. It's one of the things that makes us, a little bit unique, a bit exceptional. Number of reasons for that. One of them is really, honestly, we started out with a two-party system, and it's remained the same ever since. What's that law of physics? A body in motion tends to remain in motion. We started out right with the Federalists supporting ratification of the Constitution and the Anti-Federalists opposing ratification. The Federalists won that debate, obviously, spoiler alert, and that became our preeminent political party at the beginning. And really, by the end of George Washington's second term, he had really become kind of a Federalist, really, even though he also talked about how much he hated political parties. He, by the end of his second term, became aware that, oh yeah, we're going to have them, and this is the one I like more than the other one. He was a Federalist, arguably, by the end of his second term, and his successor, John Adams, was definitely a Federalist. So that was the in party at the beginning, the dominant party, most of the founding fathers. And then the out party, right, were the anti-feds. They did lose the war over the ratification debate, but they did win the battle over the Bill of Rights. We talked about that. And then they became very quickly the opposition party. And Thomas Jefferson is the one who organized the anti-feds into a coherent political party, the Jeffersonian Democratic Republicans. And of course, right, they become prominent pretty quickly in the election of 1800. Where Jefferson manages narrowly to defeat John Adams for the presidency. And now the Democratic Republicans are in power. Not only the White House, but also the Congress. And then the Federalist Party very quickly sort of falls apart because, right, they become very old school and fuddy-duddy and out of touch very quickly. Because they were very aristocratic in many ways, very elite, very skeptical of we the people. You see a lot of that in our Constitution. We've talked about that. They kind of stick with that approach, right? Limiting the right to vote, fencing out most of we the people, keeping it under the control of an elite white male. Well, that sort of puts them increasingly at odds with how America is evolving culturally and politically. Right, because as early as the election of 1800 and what comes out of that is we begin to grow the electorate. Initially by expanding the right to vote to white men without property. That was a big expansion, by the way. Sounds modest today. It was a big deal back then. So they very quickly end up as pretty marginal as a political party. And they eventually fall apart completely. It becomes the Whig Party, W-H-I-G, I think in reference to a political party over in England. And the Whig Party also falls apart, split over the issue of slavery. And out of that, of course, comes the Republican Party in, I believe, 1854, I believe in Ripon, Wisconsin. They run their first candidate for the White House in 1856, John Fremont, that Fremont, I believe, Fremont Street. He loses, of course. And then they run a new guy in 1860. Guy by the name of Abraham Lincoln. You may have heard of that guy. He's rather more successful. And the Republican Party is off and running. The Democratic Republican Party eventually evolves into the name the Democratic Party. And they've been around. That's our oldest political party, is the Democratic Party. The Republican Party is a bit more recent, but still has goes back to the 1850s, also known as the GOP, the Grand Old Party. And ever since then, right, a two-party system, Democrats and Republicans. Other things I would say here, without letting this run too long, which it already is. I would say, let me say this quickly. Another reason why we have a two-party system and not multi-party is the rules of the game, and the rules of the game heavily favor a two-party system. Other democracies have different rules that is more conducive to a multi-party system. What's the single biggest rule that shapes our two-party system? Single member, winner take all electoral districts. Right? How many electoral districts are there in Nevada for the House of Reps in Washington, D.C.? 4. Right? We've carved out 4 separate districts geographically in Nevada. In each district, only one person can win that election. Right? A single member, winner take all from each district. So if you can't get either 50% plus 1 or at least close to that, you've got no chance of winning that seat. You always get none if you can't hit that high standard. What room is there for a third party under those conditions? That's probably going to need to work its way up to that level over many decades, but they're going to lose every time. You get 10% in one of these districts, as let's say the Libertarian Party, you've gotten crushed. You get nothing. 10% the next time, nothing. You jump up to 15, you're killing the game, nothing. Right? So very quickly, it makes it very hard for third parties to get representation at the national level. And it really puts the two main parties as the only viable political parties. Yeah, for sure. To change that, we would need to change our entire system. We'd have to have multi-member proportional representation where it's not winner take all, right? So let's say that Nevada had 10 districts, 10 seats in the House. To make it more conducive to third parties, you would need to make all of Nevada a single district, electing 10 representatives to the House. And here's another part of it. You'd have to have strong political parties that were centralized and could dictate what positions on the issues members had to take. And if those members didn't take all those positions exactly, they would be out of the party. We don't have political parties like that. You ever notice? Our parties are decentralized, undisciplined. You can be a conservative Democrat, that's cool. A moderate Democrat, that's cool. Super uber left progressive Democrat, that's cool. Right? A wide diversity within each party ideologically. A whole range of policy positions within the same party. That's not how it's done in other democracies typically. You got a centralized party. You got a party platform, and all the members got to stick to that or they're out. So we'd have to have that kind of a party system, which we don't. Okay, we don't have political parties that look anything like that. And then people here in Nevada would basically vote based on political party, because it would hardly matter who the members were, right? Because if they're a Democrat, you already know no matter which Democrat they happen to be, they're going to adhere to these issues always. Right? So you basically vote party label. So we don't have that. We don't have that. But if we did, you could imagine a multi-party system, right? It's more conceivable. Because then, right, you'd have a statewide election for those 10 seats. You'd vote by political party. And let's say that, hypothetically, the Democratic Party got 40% of the vote. The Republican Party got 40% of the vote. The Green Party, as kind of a left progressive party, got 10% of the vote. And the Libertarian Party, as kind of a right-wing small government party, gets 10%. Right? 10% and 10% for the two small parties. Well, what do they get? They get 10% of 10 seats, 1 seat each, right? So the Democrats would send 4 members to the House of Reps. The Republicans would send 4 members. The Green Party would send a member, and the Libertarian Party would send a member. Boom. A system more conducive to a multi-party political system. But you'd have to change all of our most basic rules that go all the way back to the founding. That ain't going to happen. That ain't going to happen. So we're stuck, or not, depending on how you think about it. We have a two-party system. There's much to be said about a two-party system. It's perfectly fine. A multi-party system is also fine. They're both good ideas. They're both consistent with democracy. All right. But that's what we have here in America, a two-party system. Yeah, because what happens? All right, in a multi-party system, you're typically going to end up, and it would have to be a parliamentary system, which we don't have that. It would have to be a parliamentary system where the president or the prime minister or whatever you want to call it, they would actually come from the majority party in Congress. Or maybe not the majority party, right? Maybe, let's say in Congress, you end up with, and let's just narrow it down to the House of Reps. Let's say that 40% of the House are Democrats, 40% are Republicans. Let's say 15% are Libertarian, and 5% are Green Party. All right, so then you would probably have the Republican Party would lobby the Libertarian Party to join ranks with them. So you got 40% Republican, 15% Libertarian. Boom, you now control 55 seats. Assuming the House had 100 seats. You would control more than half of the seats in the House. Because the Democrats, right, would form forces with the Green Party, but they only have 5 out of the 100 seats, 5%. They'd only have 45% of the seats. So they form these coalitions at the elite level in a multi-party system. It becomes coalitional politics. This is more than you wanted, right? Sorry. You end up having coalition politics in multi-party systems, where once you have the parties in place in the representative body, they try to negotiate with the third, fourth, and fifth parties to get to 50% plus one. And in that case, right, the Republicans would have the structural advantage. Their natural ally would be the Libertarian Party. That gets them to 55%. So they would form a government, a coalition government, and then they would choose from among their own ranks who the president was, a parliamentary system. And then that individual would need to make sure, as president, that they mostly represented the Republican Party, but they would also have to give some things to the Libertarian Party to keep them happy. Like, hey, Libertarian Party, a lot of my high officials in my administration are going to be Republicans, but some of the key positions will be Libertarians. Keep them happy. Keep the coalition together. So again, you kind of see how that system is so different from ours. It's perfectly cool, a cool way to do it, perfectly democratic. It's just very different. Different historical arcs, different cultures, different rules of the game, different politics. It's all still democratic. So we have a two-party system, winner take all. And we have an independent executive that's not chosen, obviously, by the legislative chamber, of course. And our parties are decentralized, fragmented, and undisciplined. So that's why, in large part, why we have a two-party system. The rules of the game heavily favor it in our history. All right, more than you wanted. Now, for a long time, people don't realize this oftentimes, and I may have covered this in other areas before, but yeah, for a long time, party elite within both parties controlled who was the nominee to run for president. That was the case by and large, effectively, until 1964. And through 1964, that's just simply how it was, as hard as that is to imagine today. Party elite within each party chose the nominee to run for president. We, the people, would vote in the general election, but the nomination process was elite dominated by the two parties. That changed in 1964. I'm not going to go into that here. I think I covered it elsewhere. But basically, the 64 convention was a disaster for the Democratic Party because the party elite wanted one guy, Hubert Humphrey. Ordinary Democrats, rank and file, wanted Eugene McCarthy. The elite said, screw you, you're getting Hubert Humphrey, even though he wasn't really supported strongly by we the people. And he lost that election, of course, to Richard Nixon. Yeah. Is that right? 64? No, this is the 68 convention. I knew that didn't sound right. It was the 68 convention. You're getting Hubert Humphrey. He runs against Nixon in 68 and gets defeated narrowly because the party was divided. The elite wanted this guy. The regulars wanted that guy. And after that, the Democrats were like, we can't keep doing it this way. We want to win general elections. We need to have we the people choose our nominees through primaries and caucuses. We take that for granted today. For most of our history, it was the elite that dominated that process. So by 1972, both political parties moved towards that system that we have today. Right? I always say, how was Donald Trump able to win the Republican nomination for running for the White House in 2016? Because the party elite didn't want Donald Trump. They wanted anybody but Donald Trump. They're like, my God, Donald Trump, hell no. Guy's an idiot. He's all flash, no substance, all sizzle, no steak. He's a liar. He's corrupt. He's a bad businessman. He's a failed real estate developer. He made his actual money as an entertainer on television. Those are all true. That's why they didn't want him. But they got him. They got him, much to their deep chagrin and regret. They got Donald Trump instead. And he's reshaped the party fundamentally. Because we, the people, got to choose, rightly so. Right? Ordinary Republicans said, no, we like this guy. There's something about him, man. There's something about that guy. We just like him more than all the other Republicans. That's because of the 68 convention in Chicago. All right. And then worth mentioning, two things quickly here. Right now, our two political parties are very far apart, heavily polarized. It's a little shocking how polarized they are these days. And that's created, right, a lot of conflict, a lot of 50-50 splits among we the people and our political parties and our government. Those are all connected. It's made it harder and harder to get things done. Because right now, right, Congress is close to 50-50. Republicans have nominal control of the Senate and the House, but their level of control is so slight that if too many Republicans defect on any one issue, or Trump blows shit up in Congress, Congress is paralyzed all over again. Didn't Speaker of the House Mike Johnson just let the House go early over 4th of July break? Because there were a bunch of things where the votes were not going to go the way he wanted them to go, because leadership has a hard time controlling rank and file. And a lot of stuff was going to blow up and wasn't going to get passed and was going to be embarrassing for Mike Johnson. And Trump helped blow things up. And he's like, okay, I'm out of here. We'll regroup after the break. We'll try again. We'll try again later. It's because his control in the House is so small. It's easy for malcontents to blow it up. And then finally, right, Donald Trump he was the outsider in 2016. He departs the office in shame in 2021 because he lost an election and tried to overturn it. He leaves in shame. Well, he never feels any shame, but shame for the Republican Party. A lot of them were saying, we told you about this guy. Like this was predictable. But what happens with Trump? He maintains his connection with we the people, with ordinary Republicans and enough independents. He maintains that popular support despite all of his behaviors. He maintains that support, maybe even grows it a little, right? And he's back. He's back. And remember, the stakes for him in 2024 were incredibly high, right? If he loses that election, he could have definitely gone to prison. His business empire would have collapsed. He was looking at an extremely dark end-of-life future for himself. But, he pulls it out, right? He pulls it out and wins a decent little victory. And now everything is going great for Donald Trump. He's building his wealth. We know now that in his first, his first year and a half or so, he's made about $2.2 or $2.4 billion. That's pretty good, using the office as leverage. Never been done before. It sets a new bar for future presidents. How much can you monetize the office? Trump has set a very high standard. He's not going to prison. He still has to pay E. Jean Carroll for the defamation stuff. But that's pennies, given how much he's grown his fortune. and he's at no risk while he's president of being prosecuted for anything. So he's in good shape. He'll be at some legal risk again when he leaves office at the end of his second term, but he'll be so old by then, so old, and he's not doing great now. I'm pretty sure, assuming he's still alive, then he'll be able to play out the string without suffering too much threat of criminal prosecution. So he played the game in the end very well indeed. At some level impressive. At some level impressive. But now, right, he fully owns the Republican Party. He goes from outsider in 2016, departs the stage in shame in 2021, but he makes this remarkable comeback, and he's back in control of the Republican Party. He has tight control. It's almost shocking. I haven't seen that in my lifetime on either side of the aisle, where a president has such control of his or her party. Yeah, so it raises questions, doesn't it, for the Republican Party? What's next? Given that right now it is basically the Donald Trump party, and Trump is not always ideologically consistent, and I'm being generous when I say that. What will the party look like when he has left the stage definitively? Where do they go? Because it's a lot of it's cult of personality. That's his grip on we the people. He's got a cultish sort of a following. He's got a great skill set in that area. What happens to a cult of personality party when the personality passes? We don't know. We don't know. It's going to be fascinating to see how that sort of plays out in the future. Really fascinating. All right. Thanks.